Enrollment has to happen. Does everyone understand that? All the other steps are super important because it gets you to this point, but if you never get them to this point, you never make any money. And how many of you are here to make money? Okay. Now, one of the things that we find a lot, depending on, and I'll say I've seen this a lot within our industry, but also a little bit here, and some teams more than others. But every prospect deserves to know that there is a business option here at LifeWave, available to everyone with no exception, with no experience necessary, and immediate earning potential. Now, Olga Solis was up here and she told a very touching story. How many would you agree? Now, would the patches help her son? We believe so, right? But did she just need the patches? If that's all you offered her, and then she found out later that there was an opportunity to earn an income which was super important to her, would we have let her down potentially? So it is important. And do you know anybody out there today? Maybe there's not many, maybe you don't know any, but that actually need extra income on a daily basis. You know, there is something called inflation. Has anybody felt that in any way, shape, or form? So these are things that everyone is dealing with, and so never be ashamed or never be afraid to talk about the business. So when we're helping them enroll, you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time on it, but make sure you offer it. Now, some will say you should start with the product and then lead to the business, and we oftentimes say it's better to lead with the business and go to the products because if they're not interested in the business, you can still get them to focus on the product. But if you lead with the product, the chances are you're not going to ever get them to look at the business. Does that make sense? And so whenever you're talking about the importance of enrolling, make sure that you're always taking that opportunity to share that there is a way to earn a little extra income if you're willing to share. Okay. Now, in part of this process of helping someone enroll, there's a few steps that are really important. The follow-up. You know, I always like to call this the big FU. That's maybe a little inappropriate, but you got your attention, right? So it's important to always follow up. The fortune is in the follow-up, but also the friends are in the follow-up. So what are some of the things you can say as you're following up after they've had a chance to look? Because all the steps that we just talked about are important, but what stood out to you most? Now hopefully these are not anything new to you. These are all things that I've heard from in my career throughout, all the times all the meetings I've been to. What did you enjoy about your experience? And what questions do you have that you picture yourself using these products? So again, these are all different ways you can follow up. And of course, then it leads to inviting them to enroll because this is where a lot of times we call it the close. And the close is really important. It's not a bad word, it's actually a very good word because this is where we want to get everyone to. And the best way, so you can say something like, the best way to experience this product is to try it for 30 days. So getting them thinking that it's not just gonna be a patch I'm gonna wear one day and I'm gonna get a full experience. Now, how many of you are one patch wonders? We've got a few in the room. And how many of you are not? Probably a bigger percentage, right? And so that's why it's important we always set the stage of that you might need to use it a little bit more than just once. Hopefully we all should know that. Okay. Or what you could also say, what are your thoughts about starting with the 90-day journey? Again, you're setting them up for the best success because you're setting them up to use it long enough to a point where we know they're more than likely going to have a positive experience. And then, of course, it leads us to that next question, which is just the ways to enroll. Who else do you know that could benefit from LifeWave? Asking for the referral, very important. Can you see yourself sharing this? Again, if they know somebody, how hard is it to then say, well, actually, if you end up sharing with them, you could actually earn a little extra income. So these are all different ways to add to lead to the business. And would you be interested in earning some extra income or to purchase your products? Now that is probably the most common one that I've heard most teams that are using. Is just that let's help you get your products paid for. And I love as you go through this process, that every step that we've talked about in the Light Success System leads to this point. But the better you're doing at the invite stage, the easier it's going to be at the enrollment stage. Do you agree? So the more questions you ask and the better questions you ask, the more likely you're gonna get them to the place where you know exactly what they need, and you're gonna help them make the decision really easily. And so asking good questions. In fact, one of the books that I once read was by a gentleman by the name of Alan Pease called The Questions Are the Answer. And we have to be really good at listening if we want that to work for us. So asking good questions. Who else do you know that would benefit from LifeWave? Again, wanting to ask who is it those people, and everybody knows someone that can benefit. Then listening. But you gotta make sure you really stop and listen. Because it's all too often we're trying to think of what we're gonna say next and how we're gonna, get them to that next step. But the more we listen, the easier it's gonna be for us to know exactly what to say. Acknowledge what they shared. I hear what you're saying. Has everyone, if the more you are able to put them at ease to say, I've been there, I know exactly what you're talking about, the easier it's gonna be to help them feel like you're gonna be able to provide them a great service. Okay. Move the conversation forward. If I could show you how to do this, would you be open to chatting further? And then, of course, validate and address their questions. I can set up a 3-way call or invite to a webinar, focus on their questions and their needs. And so these are all just different ways to help them progress. Some people are gonna have some objections as you go through this, and that's all part of the process. But as we get focused on helping them to enroll and go through this process, by the time we get to this point where we're actually showing them what the options are, it's more of a, which one would you like versus a, please buy something. Does that make sense? We never want to get to a point where we're begging. Maybe with our family we'll beg because we just want them to try it because we know how much it's going to help them, right? But mostly, hopefully, we don't have to do that. And it's just like, which pack would be best for you? And we find that someone in your circumstance might be best for this. How many of you really like our new Advanced Plus pack? To have that an additional pack into your quivers to help people, I think is absolutely fantastic. And so using these packs, helping them to find out which one they want and moving them along. And of course, as you go through this process, there is the PC Plus program, as well as joining them as a brand partner. Everybody's gonna join a different place, and that's okay. We oftentimes finding that starting with, again, similar with starting with the business, if they're, hey, would you be interested in joining as a brand partner? If you know a few people, we could help you get your products paid for. And if the answer is, I'm not sure, okay, well, that's great. Well, we can just get you started on the products. And if you want to join as a PC Plus member, for a little bit of a payment, I can get you samples worth, 3 or, but 5 times what the value of what you're paying for that is, which is actually more than that. But you get the idea. Don't try to ever do math on stage. You're in for trouble. Okay, so PC Plus, PC, again, all the benefits behind it. We want to make sure you're on a monthly subscription order because we want to make sure you're always getting the best results, and you don't ever want to run out when you're having the kind of results we know you're going to have. And so those are just some kind of things you can do just to help them progress them along to where they need to get to be so that they're ready to get started and they know where they're going. And then, of course, from that step on, it's a tracking portion of this. And I'm not going to jump into any of that, but I just want you to understand that this step right here is the moneymaker. We talked about it before, and I'm just mentioning it again because it is so important. So helping them enroll and getting to that close is very, very important. And oftentimes, that's sometimes where we can be the most timid. And that actually should be the exact opposite, is that's where we should actually be our boldest. And this whole meeting today is about lead boldly. And that's what we want to do. And when it comes to the enrollment process, let's lead boldly. Now, I have the opportunity to bring up one of our leaders here at LifeWave that has actually made a massive impact in the time that she's been here. She's been able to, in less than a year, she's been able to build